Hey guys, Tori here from Overlook Horizon. Welcome to the next SpaceX broadcast here for the Hispasat satellite launch tonight. It is Tuesday morning now. We're just after midnight here on the East Coast. Going to be a very late night launch here. I'm expecting, I don't know if I'm going to be lonely tonight or if anybody's going to hang out and stick around to see the launch tonight, but I'm here. We're gonna go through this. We're gonna watch it. I'm staying up. I got some stuff to show. If you don't see it live, you see the replay. No big deal. But we're here. We're gonna watch it live. We'll see if anybody's hanging out with us. I do see a couple people hanging out on Facebook and a couple on YouTube as well. Some hashtag Space Lobsters coming in already right off the bat. I love it. But let's get into what we're talking about today. So today is the Hispasat satellite for Spain being launched today. This was supposed to launch a couple days ago, or actually it's more like a week ago now. It's supposed to launch around like the 25th. They originally delayed it shortly after the last Falcon 9 launch for some payload pressurization issues inside the payload fairing. They got those all resolved, and now we're launching today. This is a Block 4 booster. And originally, kind of the big news for this flight is that originally this Block 4 booster was supposed to be recovered on the autonomous drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You. They originally were going to do the launch early last week, but it conflicted with the ULA launch for the Atlas V that went up on Thursday. Was that Thursday? So they wanted to try to do two launches in the same day. But I think the 45th Space Wing put the kibosh on that. Too quick of a turnaround. Didn't actually get official word, but they didn't approve their range usage to go ahead with the launch on Thursday right before the Atlas V. So anyways, it got pushed off till today. They did send out the fleet, the recovery fleet, so that would be like the tugs and of course, I Still Love You autonomous drone ship. They were out there for about a week. But then they called them back into port, and they haven't left. So they are still at in Port Canaveral in Florida. We're not going to be recovering this flight, which is a big deal. We've never, I believe, all the Block 4 boosters that have been launched to date have all been recovered. So this would be the first Block 4 booster that is not being recovered. And because this was kind of a late decision not to recover it, the titanium grid fins are still affixed to the Falcon 9 along with the landing legs. So both the landing legs, not so much of a big deal, but the titanium grid fins, according to Elon, those are some pretty expensive grid fins that they generally don't want to get rid of. So I don't think they took them off because likely the flight profile was already built into the Falcon 9. So to try to change that last minute probably is, this is speculation a little bit, but probably too much work to make all those changes last minute. So better off to launch with the existing flight profile and make this an expended landing. It was already going to be a high risk landing to begin with because this is the largest satellite payload that they've put up to where are we going today? Geostationary or geostationary transfer orbit. So this is one of the largest, or the largest payload that they have put up for this. So they were going to try to do a 3-engine landing burn, kind of a very dangerous suicide burn for that landing. Had very small chances of actually being successful to begin with, but they were going to give it a try. Hopefully they would have landed it, but we'll never know because this one's gonna land in the ocean, and from what I'm told, they're gonna try to do a soft landing, soft water landing, kind of like what they did for the GovSat mission a couple weeks back. So I doubt they'll show that on the webcast today, but I do hope to see some news from Elon. Maybe it'll survive like the GovSat mission booster survived. So if you didn't see the GovSat one a couple weeks ago, they did another one of these soft water landings. Totally expected it to land softly on the water, but then as it tips over and hits the water, everything's still pressurized, and they just expected it to explode, and it didn't, which I'm guessing it kind of surprised them, surprised me. that it didn't explode, but they had to figure out what to do with it, and they couldn't safely tow it back to Florida. So they ended up having I believe it was a private contractor, basically scuttle this booster in the ocean. So maybe we'll run into that situation again. I was really hoping to see that landing today, just because it was a high risk landing that they were going to try, because they would have very, very minimal fuel left today, with it being such a heavy payload today. So let's take a look at what we've got here. I got a couple things to show. So this is the SpaceX broadcast here over my shoulder. They haven't started yet. They don't generally start till about 15 minutes prior to launch. So we'll keep that up and keep an eye on it. And then once they do start, we'll switch over to that. We'll listen in. We'll stick around a little bit after the launch. But we can talk about timelines and stuff like that as well, because I got a couple things we can look at here. So here's our mission patch for the Hispasat. It's the 30W-6 satellite. And the animation here, you can kind of see it up in the corner there, but I do have a larger version of that. So this is kind of a artistic representation of what this satellite is going to look like once it gets deployed into orbit. And so this is a satellite for a Spanish provider. It's a telecommunications satellite. This is Hispasat they do a lot of like television broadcast support, among other things. But this is a Spanish-based satellite that they're putting up into orbit today. I was looking. I don't know if I actually saw. Oh yeah, there it is. Geostationary transfer orbit is what we're going for today. So that's what I thought, but I don't remember. I couldn't remember if I actually saw that. But yeah, it's on the press kit. Geostationary transfer orbit is what we're going to today. So generally, geostationary transfer orbit's an elliptical orbit that's going to eventually get you to geostationary orbit, but it will be up to the satellite provider. So Hispasat, once that SpaceX will put them in geostationary transfer orbit, which is this elliptical orbit that's very elongated, and then Hispasat over the next couple of weeks or months will then be responsible for circularizing that and actually getting themselves into geostationary orbit after the SpaceX portion of the mission is over. So let's see. So let's talk timeline here real quick. Where is it? There it is. So here's our timeline for today. We're at, what are we at? We're about 25 minutes prior to launch here. So we're already through a lot of the beginning here. They have started liquid oxygen loading. So we are fueling, and it's underway. No issues so far that have been reported that I've seen, at least not when I started the broadcast. So and last I saw, yeah, so I just got an update just a minute ago. It says all proceeding well with fueling. So we're still looking good for launch today. Weather was 90%. There were really no constraints that I've seen all day. So things are looking good for today. So I have no reason to believe that we won't go at 12:33 Eastern time. That's our T0 here, is 12:33 that we're looking at. So after launch, we'll have stage separation. We'll see that. We don't expect to see a landing because we aren't landing today. Hopefully they continue on with the broadcast a little bit so we see some of the upper stage, but we'll initially have a cutoff, and then it's going to restart about 25 minutes into flight. They'll do a second upper stage burn, and then the satellite deployment is not until 32 minutes into the flight. So we'll stick around probably right through the duration of that, and you know, shortly after the satellite deployment there, unless I just continue to talk forever. So let's see what everybody's saying here so far. Put squids on the grid fins and recover with inflation recovery with GPS. Yeah, I'm sure they really want those grid fins back because they are expensive. But it sounds like they're going to be lost to Davy Jones today with the with those titanium grid fins, unfortunately. Let's see. Hello all, and of course, hashtag Space Lobster. I love it. By the way, to pronounce my name is wow. Okay, Atenohenes. Atenohenes. I tried. It's I'm gonna go with that. Atenohenes. Okay. Well, probably butchered it, but apologies for that, but I tried, right? You got to give me credit. So, space lobsters on this flight. I don't think we're having any space lobsters on this flight, but I hear the second Falcon Heavy launch, it's got like 25 satellites on board. One of them's got to have a space lobster in it, I imagine, right? So, second Falcon Heavy flight coming up in June. 25 satellites on board the second Falcon Heavy that's coming up in June. Kind of crazy, but it's good to see that it's getting put to use. I think they're kind of like experimental-ish satellites, so not like super crazy important in case it just blows up. But nonetheless, it's still 25 satellites they're putting up on the Falcon Heavy. So look for that in June. I'm pretty excited about that. Let's see, what else can we chat on? We still got about 6 more minutes before SpaceX starts up. So here's our hazard area for today. It gives you kind of an idea of where this rocket's going to go. It's pretty much straight to the east once it takes off from Launch Complex 40, which is where we are today. So we're launching from Slick 40, and I do even have one of the things I pulled up, which I thought was kind of interesting, was a map of all the launch complexes on Cape Canaveral. There's a lot of them there, and I don't think a lot of people realize how many launch complexes there are. You've got 39 and 39A and 39B up at the top, or I should say B then A, because 39B is the first one up at the top of the map in case you can't read it. Then you got 39A. That's where like the Saturn V, the space shuttle launches, those took place there. And now SpaceX, of course, is using 39A. Then you've got Launch Complex 41. That's where the Atlas V launched from last week. And then Launch Complex 40. That's where we're launching from today. But then even after that, you've got Launch Complex 37, 34, 19, 14, 13, 12, 36, 17, 6. There's a whole bunch of them there. And even, so a lot of them are abandoned now or not necessarily in use. But when they call it the Space Coast, it really is. Here's another look at all the different launch complexes there. So looks like SpaceX is gearing up here. They're pretty early. Usually they wait till 15 minutes, but we'll continue on. Somebody said, what is SpaceX launching today? It is the Hispasat satellite for Spain. So the Hispasat satellite, it's replacing this is the 30W-6. It's replacing the 30W-4 satellites, which it's providing television, broadband services, corporate networks, other kind of telecommunication stuff. And it's it's a Spanish-based satellite. And it's going to be covering primarily Europe, the Mediterranean, and I think some of the Americas as well. But I believe it's primarily for Europe and the Mediterranean area. Maybe even like Northwest Africa, I bet. So yeah, that's what we're launching today. Couple quick facts we'll throw out today. It is kind of a bit of a celebration. Today is the 50th Falcon 9 launch. So 50, the 50th Falcon 9 launch that SpaceX has put on. So that's a big deal. We got 50 of them now. It's the 56th SpaceX launch total. The other 6 being 1 Falcon Heavy and 5 Falcon 1s that were launched a long time ago now. Seems like forever. This is the 30th SpaceX launch from Slick 40, which is Launch Complex 40. And the 4th Falcon 9 this year. Let's see if I can remember them all. We had Zuma, we had GovSat, we had the PAS mission, and now we've got Hispasat. Hey, look at that. I remember. There's only 4, so come the end of the year, see if I can remember them all. Because SpaceX, if you missed it on the last broadcast, SpaceX mentioned that they're targeting 30 launches this year. 30. Last year they did 18. The year before they did 12. So we went 12, 18, and now they're targeting 30 for this year. That'd be crazy. see if they can actually hit those kind of numbers. So, let's see, 999 Bravo. I think Launch Complex 13 is now LZ1 and LZ2 where SpaceX lands. Yeah, one of them definitely is. I don't remember which one it is. Let me pull it up. I can actually, if I look at the map, I can tell you. Where'd my map go? There it is. See if I can read it. What did you say? Launch Complex 13. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's down at Launch Complex 13 is that's where LZ1 and LZ2 are, a little bit further down. So yeah, they did convert those to the actual landing zones because we need those now for rockets. It's not just liftoffs anymore. Let's see. Hello from the Netherlands. Good to see the Netherlands here. I don't know what time it is there, but it's a late night here. Almost, it's after midnight here now. Let's see. Finally get to catch one of the launch commentaries live. Hello, everyone. Willie, good. Glad to see you join us. Glad to see you're here live from Tennessee in the good old U.S. here. Glad to see you're live here with us. It is a late night, but that's it. We're dedicated to rockets and SpaceX. I love the SpaceX launches. They do a really good job. If you watched our live stream from ULA last week, they leave a little bit to be desired, I think. But SpaceX does a really good job on the webcast. So hopefully this should be a fun one, even though it's a late night. And I think we probably got I haven't looked at any numbers yet, but I imagine we'll probably have a little bit of a light crowd since it's 12:17 in the morning on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, no excuse. It's like 9 o'clock there. So anyway, let's see if there's anything I wanted to show quick before SpaceX starts. I did have, where is it before they start? Where's my picture? So here's a picture of the Hispasat payload and the Falcon 9 on the launch pad from today. If you look really, really carefully, you can see right about in the middle of the rocket, you can see those dark gray titanium grid fins. They are still affixed to the Falcon 9, even though it's going to be expended today. Kind of unusual. Normally, they'd take those off. Also, the landing legs, they could also take those off if they're going to expend the first stage, but they didn't. So it was originally going to be recovered. I don't think I mentioned it yet, but they're not recovering primarily because the seas, the ocean is angry. There were real high swells from this winter storm Riley that just went by and just pounded us with snow. We got like 20 inches of snow here in Rochester, and it's still out there, and we're supposed to get more later this week. But yeah, that winter storm Riley was just this big, massive storm that's now pushed way off the coast, but it's still, I believe it's still the same system that's affecting the ocean. And it was putting on some huge swells out in the ocean, which is not good for landing rockets. So there were those huge swells out there. So they decided to leave the autonomous drone ships in port. Didn't even send them out so that they would be safe and didn't risk it. And like I mentioned earlier, this was going to be a high-risk landing, which I was kind of excited about. So I'm a little bummed they're not trying it because high risk is always fun. But this was going to be a high-risk landing because they were going to have such minimal fuel left, because this is the heaviest payload they've ever put into geostationary transfer orbit. So they were really pushing the limits on this one. Would have been cool to see, but I guess we're not going to see that today. So hello from Germany, 6:17 a.m. here. Oh man, it's early. It's early here, but 6:17 for some reason sounds earlier. I like this time of day better. I'd rather be up at midnight than 6 in the morning. I just happen to be a night person, so this is okay with me being up this late. But good to see you. Germany's here. It's 6:17 in the morning. Only 9:15 here in California. I know it's still early out there. And probably a lot warmer than it is here, too. Especially we get 20 degrees and a whole bunch of snow here. Let's see. I want to make sure. I'm seeing my phone go off like crazy. I just want to make sure we haven't scrubbed anything yet. So let me just take a quick peek. Let's see. I'm getting I got a whole bunch of thumbs up. Jerry says, love this show. Keep up the good work. Hashtag Space Lobster Show. I like that. We're the hashtag Space Lobster Show now. Yeah, and let's see. So SpaceX, the Falcon 9 is now in internal power. So looks like we're still proceeding normally. And yeah, look, I guess the SpaceX webcast already has got 30,000 viewers on it. So I figured maybe it'd be a light crowd. You know, ours doesn't have 30,000 viewers on it. We're working on it. We're getting there. But I guess the late night hasn't deterred people yet. So anyway, well, looks like we're just about to get started. Deborah, oh, thanks for the super chat, Deborah. Always appreciate these live commentaries. Here's a donation for you. Thank you very much, Deborah. Really appreciate that. Let's see. Hi from the UK, 5:20 there. Oh, that's even earlier. Let's see. Did I miss any quick before we jump over to the broadcast? I don't see any, but we'll get back to comments. We'll stick around after launch too. I just want to get the volume up, and we'll hear what they have to say to get started here today.
Live view of a Falcon 9 rocket as it awaits liftoff from the SpaceX launch pad approximately 11 minutes from now at 33 minutes after the hour.
Oh, I probably should make this big so you can see it.
Welcome to today's live webcast of the Hispasat 30W-6 mission from one of my favorite pads, Space Launch Complex, Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. My name is John Innsbrucker. I'm the Falcon Principal Integration Engineer. Today we will be delivering the Hispasat 30W-6 communication satellite to a geostationary transfer orbit, also known as GTO. Now it's 6 metric tons, or 6,000 kilograms. Hispasat 30W-6 is the largest geostationary satellite we've ever flown. It's almost the size of a city bus.
Yeah, this thing is
massive. We'll cover the Falcon 9 mission on today's webcast from now through satellite separation. The first stage will perform the programmed re-entry and landing burns, but we won't have coverage of those events. Due to poor weather in the Atlantic Ocean, SpaceX could not send the drone ship downrange, and we will not be recovering the first stage.
Bummer. Sad face. It's cool that it's just going to go through the routine, though. They already probably, like I said earlier, they probably programmed this flight profile a while ago. No sense changing it. Just let the Falcon 9 do what it was going to do originally, and it's going to pretend to land. It's just there's not going to be a ship there to catch it. So still kind of cool that it's going to go through the whole process. Probably the same reason why they left the grid fins on, they left the landing legs on. It's just going to
today's flight,
do its thing.
Many of our recent launches, includes a new first stage. This is evidenced by the clean white painted exterior you can see on the rocket on the screen. Now, launch was originally planned for 25 February, but we stood down on that launch attempt to conduct additional testing on the fairings pressurization system. Following those tests, we fixed our problem, and Falcon 9 was ready to launch early morning on the 1st of March. But a previously scheduled Atlas launch required SpaceX to move the launch to this evening. Hispasat was mated to the Falcon 9 a week ago, and it rolled out to the pad and was raised vertical early Monday. Now, SpaceX uses a transporter erector to carry the launch vehicle the short distance from the hangar to the pad. The transport erector then raises the vehicle to vertical. The erector is the structure that you can see to the left of the Falcon 9 rocket in the image. Now, the strong back part, the vertical part, will recline to about a 55-degree angle at liftoff.
Is that loud enough for everybody? You let me know if it's too quiet.
The Falcon 9 you see on the screen is a two-stage rocket.
Turn it up a little bit, I think.
The first stage has 9 Merlin engines. That's why we call it the Falcon 9. And it makes up about 2/3 the overall height of the rocket.
Tell me if it's too loud or too quiet.
Our original plan tonight was to recover the first stage in the Atlantic Ocean on our drone ship. But waves up to 8 meters, or 26 feet in height, eliminated the possibility of recovery, and we kept our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, in port. Now, the first stage will still fire its engines to re-enter and land, and you may hear some of that during the flight on the countdown net, but we don't expect the first stage to survive landing. Now, on top of the first stage is the second stage. It uses a single Merlin engine optimized to perform in the vacuum of space, and it will place Hispasat into a geostationary transfer orbit. And finally, if you look at the top of the rocket, that's our payload fairing that encloses the satellite. The fairing protects the satellite as we power through Earth's atmosphere and will separate along the middle at about 3 minutes and 30 seconds into flight. Now this is a version 1 fairing, unlike the slightly wider version 2 we flew late last month from Vandenberg.
That was the one that Mr. Steven tried to catch with the boat, was the fairing 2.0. This is the original fairing 1.0, so a little skinnier, a little shorter, not by much, but a couple of upgrades for that 2.0 fairing, and that's for them to recover it. So no 2.0 fairing for this one, just the regular 1.0 fairing. So they're not going to do any sort of recovery efforts for the fairing today. That'll just be jettisoned and lost. I don't even think they're going to try to recover pieces or anything. So, but yeah, that's perfect now for me, Willie said. Oh, okay, I'm assuming you're talking about the volume there. Yeah, it looked like it was a little bit low on the volume on my meter here. So hopefully it's a little bit better now.
T-minus 6 minutes, 45 seconds. We're starting to hear activity on the countdown net. We did our standard go-no-go poll. That was held at about T-minus 2 hours. We began loading propellants at T-minus 70 minutes. Fuel is currently loaded on the second stage as planned, and we are finishing up the first stage. We are in the middle of about a 1-minute top-off that began 30 seconds ago, and we've just heard the call out. The stage 1 fuel load is complete. Liquid oxygen loading is continuing on both stages. That'll wrap up between the T-minus 3 and T-minus 2 minute marks. Hispasat's satellite team is go for launch. They confirmed at T-minus 14 minutes they were on internal power. No further activities from here. The Air Force range is ready to support. The areas are cleared around Slick 40 for flight. The weather, both at ground level and upper altitude winds, is good and go for launch. So with all stations indicating go for launch, let's take a closer look at today's satellite.
We live in a hyper-connected world, surrounded by information, and with consumer habits that are oriented towards greater freedom of movement and a demand for increased flexibility, reliability, and capacity in communications. We need connectivity of the highest quality wherever and whenever needed, regardless of whether we are located in a remote area or we are moving at high speeds. To respond to this growing demand, Hispasat launches the Hispasat 30W-6 satellite. From its orbital position at 30 degrees west, Hispasat 30W-6 will replace and expand the capacity of Hispasat 30W-4 and thus completes the current phase of the company's growth plan. Hispasat 30W-6 has beams that point to the Mediterranean, Europe, Spain, Northeast Africa, and the American continent. And it increases the operator's Ka and Ku band offering, as well as incorporates a new beam in the C-band. With this configuration, Hispasat 30W-6 will provide broadband internet access to help bridge the digital gap in North Africa, Latin America, and the Iberian Peninsula. Reinforce the distribution of audio-visual content in Latin America, and provides connectivity in high-speed trains and maritime services in the Caribbean and Mediterranean. Hispasat 30W-6 is the fourth satellite of the Hispasat fleet built by Space Systems Loral on its 1300 platform, and it involved the participation of Spanish companies to manufacture components and develop the ground segment. Furthermore, Hispasat 30W-6 incorporates a Ka-band receiver demonstrator based on photonic technology, and its modules have been designed by DAS Photonics and Trio. With services similar to those of the current receivers available on the market, the application of photonic technology to these types of components will make it possible to significantly reduce its mass and volume in the future. The launch of Hispasat 30W-6 will be carried out on a SpaceX Falcon 9 vehicle from the Kennedy Space Center facilities in Cape Canaveral, Florida. From its orbital position at 30 degrees west, it will provide high-quality telecommunication services during its more than 15 years lifetime. Hispasat 30W-6, growing connectivity.
T-minus 2 minutes and 44 seconds. We're counting down to an on-time launch. Everything looks good on Falcon 9. First stage propellant load liquid oxygen has just completed. Second stage is wrapping up. The strongback has moved away the degree and a half from the Falcon 9. We're getting ready to pressurize for flight. Next activity at T-minus 1 minute. The flight computer on the Falcon 9 will go into startup, taking over control of the countdown. The Hispasat satellite team, they are go for launch. The range is go. The weather is go for launch. And so now at T-minus 2 minutes and 10 seconds, we're going to listen in to the last minutes of the countdown of Falcon 9 with Hispasat 30W-6.
Yeah, so before they go crazy here, just a couple things to watch out for. So that he mentioned the strong back there is retracted 1.5 degrees. That will at launch time retract. I forget what the actual number is, but it will retract further at launch. Then also, I don't know if we'll see it from this camera angle, but the actual ignition, the T-tab that's used for ignition generally makes a green flash just before the engines come on. It's just a brief second, so keep an eye out for that green flash right at the engine level there. But yeah, then I saw a couple comments here. I saw Ohana's watching on the beach. He can hear loud and clear, or I don't know if it's, but good to have you with us. We're just about a minute away. Ginny, could she please stop saying Hispasat? She did say that a lot during that video, didn't she? So,
M1D fuel bleed complete.
Looks like we're gonna be going here.
M1D engine show complete.
Ground gas closeout complete.
Falcon 9's in startup. Stage 2 is pressed for flight.
LD is go for launch.
Here we go. A little bit of venting there. That's completely normal.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
T-minus 10, 9, 8,
Here we go.
7, 6.
Watch for that green flash.
4,
Maybe.
3, 2,
There it is.
1. 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Can't see anything. Yeah, there it goes. Jeez, look at that shape.
Can you go pitching downrange?
Stable, launch nominal.
So we'll be coming up on max Q here, right about 118 will be max Q. That's the maximum aerodynamic pressure. Maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle.
Just over 1 minute into flight, Falcon 9 is passing through the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Vehicle is experiencing max Q.
You've heard the call out. We're now experiencing maximum dynamic pressure, where the velocity of the first stage and the density of the Earth's atmosphere combine to create the greatest loads on the rocket. We're through that period.
Look at that exhaust
Merlin
plume.
engines have throttled back up to full power.
Cool.
Propulsion
like
indicates nominal. Power and telemetry also reported nominal.
That was pretty awesome looking.
Next major activity, just a little under a minute from now, we'll have the main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation and ignition of the second stage engine.
2:35, we're looking at first stage shutdown. And then I think 2:37 is the separation. So right around the 2:35, 2:37 mark is when we should have first stage separation.
T+2 minutes into flight, we've got about another half a minute left in the first stage burn. Trajectory looks good. We're going right down the middle of the track. We've got a great view from the ground. looking up at the Merlin engine plume on the Falcon 9. Main engine cutoff of the 9 Merlin engines in about 10 seconds.
Here we go. Shutdown. Separation. Look at that view.
Stage separation.
You see a little ring come off the bell. There it goes. A little ring on the end of the bell. I forget what that's called, but that happens every time.
Coming up on 3 minutes into flight, you hear the applause here from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. We've had a good first stage shutdown, a stage separation, and a good ignition of the upper stage engine. Right after ignition, you may have seen a couple of pieces of metal coming off the nozzle. That's normal. Those are stiffeners that go around the bottom of the nozzle for use in transporting on the ground. They fall off as we go into flight. Next event coming up in about 10 seconds. We're going to wait and watch for fairing separation.
That should be coming up here in just about 10 seconds.
Second stage is following nominal trajectory. Fairing separation confirmed.
There's that. That was cool. That was a cool look, too. That was a pretty neat view.
Again, the applause. You saw a good payload fairing separation. The fairing separating into the two halves and falling away. We're coming up on 4 minutes into flight. GNC reports trajectory is good.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda indicates that the Falcon 9 telemetry is also being acquired by our ground tracking station in Bermuda. Upper stage engine power continues to be constant. Thrust of the Merlin Vacuum D engine is good.
So our next event here is at about 8.5 minutes. That's going to be the second stage cutoff. That'll be the first SECO 1, and then there'll be a second burn and a second upper stage cutoff as well. But yeah, so we got about 4 minutes for that. But that was a great view. Did you see that exhaust plume that, you know, once it got up in the upper atmosphere? That was pretty awesome. I hope that somebody. There's always a ton of photographers there, but I hope somebody got some great shots of that.
On T plus 5 minutes into flight, looking at the trajectory map, Falcon 9 continues to go right along the planned path, heading east from Cape Canaveral into the first of 2 orbits planned for this evening. Now, currently, we're planning to burn that upper stage engine for just about another 3.5 minutes. We may also hear call-outs in a little more than a minute of entry burn. The first stages I mentioned will go through the pre-programmed re-entry and landing sequence, but there's no drone ship stationed out in the stormy Atlantic to be able to catch the first stage.
Yeah, what did he say earlier? Like 26-foot swells out in the Atlantic? That's crazy. I don't think you can land a rocket there, but yeah, that was a pretty great view. And somebody, Buckeye Storm says, can't imagine what that looked like up and down the coast. Yeah, I bet you could see that for a long way up and down the coast. And I think somebody on Facebook had said, it was Ohana, said that they were on the beach watching. So hopefully they're not paying attention to the broadcast right now. Watch it in person, then come back and tell us.
2.5 minutes to
tell
go
us how
on
it went.
The second stage engine. Very quiet on the net. Falcon 9 second stage with the Hispasat satellite attached, performing nominally as we head downrange from Cape Canaveral. Currently, second stage will be accelerating up to about 4 Gs. As a reminder, the Hispasat 30W-6 satellite,
heard something in the background.
Elon has tweeted out, is massing over 6 metric tons. That's over 6,000 kilograms, and that is the largest geostationary satellite we've ever flown. Given the size, as you
Stage 1 entry burn is started.
Stage 1 entry burn
start in the background here. As I mentioned, going through the pre-programmed sequence.
I don't know if you heard that. I don't know if I could just hear it, but somebody in the background of the broadcast yelled out, and they went like, "Oh!" I don't know what that was. It was weird to hear that, but yeah, I don't know.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And we have shutdown of stage 1 on the entry burn. That'll leave its landing burn coming up in about 1.5 minutes. Second stage continuing to run.
A lot of background noise. I'm kind of listening to the
Everything looking good on stage 2.
people in the background. I wonder if they have a view that we don't have. We can also, typically they have a second camera angle. After we go through this and they end the broadcast, we might be able to go back and see if there's a second camera angle that we can see what all this yelling was about.
7.5 minutes into flight. The glowing nozzle on the upper stage engine, that's expected. Shows the engine's running just like we want it to be.
I don't think Buckeye
on the back
Storm's...
of the second stage giving us these live views. We're about a minute away from SECO, second stage engine cutoff, number 1. That will leave us in a parking orbit. Once we get engine shut down, we'll wait for the guidance engineer to confirm that we have a good orbit.
Buckeye Storm said
terminal guidance.
first stage hitting the ocean. No, we haven't. It hasn't come down yet, so we're not quite there yet. So I don't think those sounds were the first stage crashing, but...
We heard a call out vehicle and terminal guidance. We're getting ready to go into orbit.
I just saw on Twitter somebody said they could see the entry burn from Cape Canaveral. That's pretty awesome, especially at such a dark night. Like you see the liftoff, and it said apparently they could see the
acceleration.
entry burn clear as day. That's pretty cool.
Flight termination system on stage 2 is safe.
SECO.
There's our upper stage shut off.
We've got shutdown of the second stage engine. The completion of the first burn on time. Waiting to hear a call out.
Good orbital insertion.
And there it is. We've heard good orbital insertion of the second stage, still carrying the Hispasat 30W-6 satellite. We're into the first orbit. We're going into a coast phase now. We'll wait until the orbit takes us over the equator on West Africa before we relight the upper stage engine, and that'll put us into the geostationary transfer orbit. Now, before we get to that phase, we've got a little bit more video that'll give you some insight into the satellite we're flying tonight.
Oh, wow, that's loud. Turn that down a little bit. That was really loud. I was hoping they were going to stay on the call-outs because I wanted to hear the call-out of the first stage landing, even though we weren't seeing it. I still wanted to at least hear them talk about it or hear their reaction, but maybe the engineering cam, the tech camera that they have in the engineering room might show it. I guess we're taking a look at, I don't know if it's annoying if I talk over this, but they're just playing music, so. But so everything looked, I'm just turning this down a little bit. It's just music. You can certainly watch it and not pay attention to me if you want. But everything looked pretty good. It was a gorgeous view. Man, if you're down in Florida, somewhere up and down the coast, hopefully you got to see that, because that just even on the webcast, that was a gorgeous view. So hopefully we'll hear something, I don't know, about the first stage, just to see whether it performed nominally. You know, it's being expended, but it's just curious to see if it did what it was supposed to do.
Minutes after a great liftoff of Falcon 9 from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral, the first stage did its mission. Second stage has done the first of 2 planned burns. We're into the desired orbit. We're now in the coast phase, as I mentioned. As you can see from the animation, the orbit will take us over Western Africa. As we cross the equator, we'll relight the engine, transferring the Hispasat 30W-6 satellite into the desired geostationary transfer orbit. Now, it's still several minutes before we get to that reignition, so we're going to stop live commentary right now. We'll come back live with the webcast at T plus 26 minutes, but we will leave you the animation so you can see how the second stage is orbiting around the Earth, coming up on the point for reignition. So with that, we'll pause now. We'll be back in just over 14 minutes at T plus 26 minutes.
Bermuda loss of signal expected.
All right, so they're going on. I guess we'll shut this down here. We'll kill their audio. I guess we could probably have it a little bit on in the background. Although I don't know if I can personally listen to it at the same time and talk. But Yeah, actually, it's not going to work. It's already bothering me. How am I going to... Oh, no, I got to leave it on because I got to hear when they come back. Otherwise, I might miss it. So anyways, yeah, it looked like everything looked good. I don't think... So some of those sounds that I was hearing in the background, it's certainly possible... Well, at this point, the booster has come down. But they were the sounds were too early for the booster to have actually landed. We were still way up in upper atmosphere. So I don't know what those sounds were. I'm going to wait until... We'll wait until stage separation, then we'll go back. I'm going to go back and look at the second camera, see if we can see anything there, what was going on. So Buckeye Storm says, when will it hit daylight? Where is the dawn line? Is it somewhere over Africa? I'm not sure exactly where that is, but that second stage separation will be over West Africa. So, you know, it may still be another 15 minutes. If it is over Africa, it might be another 15 minutes, but it should potentially hit daylight. Well, it's obviously going to hit daylight at some point, but I bet it might hit daylight during the webcast here, so we might actually get to see that. So let's see what else. I see they've been cutting down on the broadcast team. No more faces giving anything away. Yeah, no more oh, okay. I didn't know what that word was. No more faces giving anything away. Yeah, during the Falcon Heavy, they had the full commentary team, and the center core. It sounds like they got it in their earpiece that the center core had exploded, but somebody on the other end of that told them not to say anything because they went, "Oh, and we've heard that." Okay, just kidding. So I'm guessing somebody told them like, don't say anything. I don't know why they wouldn't want to say anything. That still kind of confuses me about the Falcon Heavy bit, because they've always been so transparent about you know, whatever happens. So it does still surprise me that they didn't just come out and say like, "Hey, it blew up," you know. But for whatever reason, they decided not to. You know, maybe they wanted the publicity on Falcon Heavy to be focused on the positive. Could be. But yeah, it was they don't have the full broadcast crew today, so no more faces that they can give away today, at least. But that the main guy there, John, you know, he's almost always on the. I think his name's John. He's almost always on the broadcast. He does a really good job. But yeah, so far so good on the flight there. I'm just going to see if I can pull up. Let's see. I got a whole bunch of things that came in from Twitter. I'm going to see real quick if anybody got a shot. Well, actually, I can just rewind. We can come back to... we can go back to live, but I want to look at this shot again here. Look at this exhaust plume. This was crazy. Not this camera angle. The next camera angle that they show, or maybe it is this camera angle, but did I go back too far? Oh, right there. There it is. Look at that exhaust plume. That looks amazing. I love that. And then you see, like, as it gets into the thinner atmosphere, it just completely disappears. It's gone. I don't know if that's like is that exhaust plume, or like it's got to be exhaust plume, right? Yeah. I don't know. For a second there, I was thinking maybe it's just illuminating the clouds, but no, that's exhaust there. That was a gorgeous view. I absolutely love that one. That's probably one of my favorite views that I've seen on one of these launches. So this was a few minutes ago, so obviously not currently happening right now. We got some time, so maybe we will switch to the second camera here. See if they show anything. Oh, just sound? No actual camera, just sound apparently. Well, that's a bummer. Nice. So we just hear it's basically all the sounds without commentary. Let's see if you could hear that yelling in the background. I don't remember where it was. timeanddate.com/world clock/sun earth. Oh yeah, we could take a look at that. Oh, I think I got the volume down on this so you can't hear it, but I was just listening. There's nothing happening really, it's just background noise. I guess I could turn it up, but there is really nothing to hear. I think it was before then, but you can just kind of hear people talking in the background.
Victory.
What do you say?
Stage 1, AFTS has saved.
Oh, wow. Wow, that was loud.
Stage 1, entry burn is started.
Jeez. Okay. That's really loud. That's like super loud.
Stage 2 is following nominal trajectory.
Just want to hear if there's anything on the net about those quick little outbursts that we heard.
Stage 1, entry burn is shut down.
God, I have to keep turning the volume down because for whatever reason, that guy that comes on is like really... Oh, did you hear that? There it was. What time is this at? Can you hear that? I don't know if you can hear that. Let me back it up again and turn it up here. Ready? You hear it? I don't know if you could hear that. That's what I heard in the background there. You just hear a big like, oh, but it's too early for the landing. So I don't know what that was, but weird. I was hoping to see something there, but I guess not. So we'll switch back to, we'll go back to the broadcast here. Let's go back to live. Oh, turn that music down. So, yeah, I was hoping maybe we'd see something, but nothing to see, but you could hear it at least. You hear them go, I don't know, whatever. They were oohing and ahhing about something. Kind of interesting. But, so right now we're just waiting. We're going to hang out and wait to see the satellite separation. So, yeah, Willie says, yeah, that was a group. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that were oohing and ahhing. I just don't know what they were oohing and ahhing about. But let's see what the Twitter machine has to say. Anybody? I'm just looking to see. I've got a feed up here somewhere. I want to see if anybody's got any pictures yet, because I do know a couple people that are down at the Cape. No pictures that I've seen up quite yet, but see if anybody somebody already posted RIP B1044. B1044 is the number for the Block 4 booster that just expended into the ocean. So somebody already put up an RIP picture, RIP B1044. Let's see what else we got. A couple of replays of the launch. We could certainly take a replay of the launch, but I did want to see if... yeah, I don't see a lot of people have any pictures up yet. Bummer. All right, well, I guess we won't look at any pictures then. But we can, what do we got? We're at 21:30. Next activity, the second stage restart is at 26:38. Roughly, give or take a few seconds. It may change depending on how the insertion performed during the actual flight, but it was scheduled for 26:38. So a few minutes out here. But here, let's go back. While we're waiting, let's go back and relive the launch here. It was, where was it? Well, there was the Hispasat video package where she said Hispasat about 75 times. Here we go. So, and then look at, I'm going to pause it here in just a second. Right there, you get a real quick glance at this green flash here. That's the T-tab. I forget what T-tab stands for. It's a very long compound name that's I don't have memorized, but it's T-tab, which is the igniter fluid for the for those Merlin engines there. But you get that cool little unique green flash as that's igniting the engines, and then you get the engine burn there. Pretty cool to see. And then, oh, I don't have the volume on, so you can't hear it, but turn it up a little bit. Don't want to rock your eardrums out with the blast off again here. But, yeah, if you're on the coast in Florida, you probably got a good view of that. So this is just a replay here. A lot of, oh, and that was the other thing I was going to show. Let me back up a little bit again here too. Look at once this shock wave hits this camera, look at how much shaking it does as soon as it gets there. Whole bunch. Look at this. Look at all the shaking. Whole lot of shaking going on. That's crazy. Another pretty awesome sight there. So yeah, we're going back to live here. So we got another, oh, just about there. So about 2 minutes until we start up this upper stage again. Uh-oh. There we go. 2 minutes till the upper stage starts up again here. Let's see, I got a couple more comments. Hi, I'm from Chile, South America. That's Ivan. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us here. Dynamite says, Houston, we are in orbit. Indeed, we got a successful orbital insertion. Now we're waiting for the second burn, which is going to be the geostationary transfer orbit burn, or the burn that will put it into geostationary transfer orbit. I wonder if, another call out about acquisition of signal. I don't know if you heard that in the. I got the volume pretty low. Actually, I'm going to even turn it a little bit lower. And I do have, let's see, I think this might be loud. Let me switch views here. I can turn the volume down a second. Yeah, that volume was all the way up. All right, so I do have, while we're waiting here, oh, maybe I don't have it anymore. Let me see if I still got it here saved somewhere. 1 second. I was going to show an image, give you an idea of what we're waiting on. Oh yeah, there it is. Let me just get it into my broadcast here real quick. Take me a second here. This is what happens when you're the producer and the host and everything all in one. So you got to do it on the fly here. So I'm producing and hosting at the same time. Jack of all trades. Oh, he's back.
We're just past T plus 26 minutes. The upper stage engine is chilled in, and we're about to have the second of 2 planned burns of the upper stage engine. This one will transfer the Hispasat satellite into the geostationary transfer orbit. We're getting contact through our Gabon tracking station in Africa, and now we're waiting for ignition of the upper stage engine.
So that should be happening like now. Quite the choppy picture there. There it goes. Oh, man, lost the downlink.
And we've heard confirmation, MVAC ignition. This burn will last just about 50 seconds.
Oh, and I think you're seeing, I think that's daylight you're seeing on the engine bell there.
Burn of the upper stage Well, it's short.
So I think it was Buckeye
velocity
Storms was asking
by
about seeing daylight. So it looks like we are
At the
going to
same
start
time,
running
we'll
into daylight
slightly
here.
Lower the inclination of the orbit.
Then you can see
closer
the
to
orbit
the
change
equator.
right on screen there. That's kind of cool.
We're now throttling down to keep G loads below 5 Gs on the satellite.
Yeah, so now you're into daylight there. You can see daylight on the engine bell.
Burn continues to go well. We're coming up on shutdown.
Ah, there it is. Somebody sent me what TTEB stands for. Trithialuminum
Tico.
triethylborane, something like that. There's no way I'm
Second stage
pronouncing
engine
that right.
cutoff.
Something
Now we're
aluminum
waiting to
and
hear guidance
something
confirm the
borane.
orbit accuracy.
Yeah, some ground under there too. Yeah, they should be.
Payload insertion.
And in the background over the speaker, you might have heard we have a good insertion orbit for the Hispasat 30W-6 satellite. So that completes another major event in today's flight. The second stage is now coasting again. There's a view of the Hispasat satellite with the sunlit portion of the Earth in the background.
It's cool to see.
Now, we've got several minutes before the actual deployment of the satellite, so we're going to suspend live commentary again. We'll be back in 3.5 minutes at T plus 32 minutes to witness the Hispasat satellite release.
3.5 minutes. So we've got. We'll turn our music down again. So the actual deployment, which is the last thing that we'll see here on the webcast, is 32 minutes and 51 seconds. So yeah, we're about 4 minutes from that deployment here. So yeah, it looks like everything's going pretty well. And then what I wanted to show, which I started getting up here on the screen here, let's see, where did I put it? Get rid of that. So this is what I was going to show here. Turn that down. So this is what I was going to show. This is, when we talk about the geostationary transfer orbit. So SpaceX's job for this satellite is to put it into transfer orbit, which is that green elliptical orbit that you see. The satellite itself will eventually be in geostationary orbit, which is the much larger red dotted or dashed orbit that you see there. But that will be up to the satellite provider to actually get itself into that geostationary orbit. A lot of these rockets are capable of doing geostationary orbit themselves, but most of the satellites have to have some sort of propulsion to control their orbit and keep them into the proper position anyways. So it's I couldn't tell you exactly why, but it's more beneficial to put them, most of these satellites get placed in a geostationary transfer orbit, and then will later they will later get themselves into geostationary orbit over the next couple of weeks, sometimes even months, depending on how much they have to change. Most of the time, it's just a couple of weeks that they can get themselves into that geostationary orbit. So that's what SpaceX's job is to get them into that GTO, or geostationary transfer orbit. So let's see. All right, we'll switch back over to here, and we're just waiting for about 2 minutes. They should have payload deployment here. Let's see. What did I miss here? Everything went black for 5 seconds. Okay, I don't know what that means. There 3-ethyl group stuck on aluminum that sticks to 3-ethyl group stuck on borane. All right. Oh, that makes sense. Triethyl aluminum, triethyl borane, right? That's what it is. Triethyl aluminum, triethyl borane. That's the TTEB, the igniter for the Merlin engines, right? Did I get it? Kinda, maybe. Sorry, close enough. So will it be doing a lunar flyby? I think I read that. No, I don't. Well, I mean, you might get a view of the moon, but it's not doing a lunar flyby. I think this is just geostationary orbit. So it's not. I mean, it is a very distant orbit, but it's not quite out to the lunar orbit. Oh, and he's back. Let me turn the volume back up.
9 second stage of satellite are in the desired geostationary transfer orbit. We've actually got a
Close
very
enough.
accurate
Yeah.
orbit that
On the
we
TTEP
achieved.
pronunciation.
Next up,
I'll work
we're
on
going
it.
to see satellite deployment. In this mode, the flight computer will send redundant commands to open the separation system that holds the satellite to the second stage. Small compressed springs will then push the satellite away from the second stage, and that'll complete deployment. We're expecting that deployment coming up in about 15 seconds. Camera showing alternating views between the nozzle of the second stage engine, the Hispasat 30W-6 satellite on top of the second stage payload adapter.
Massive city bus size satellite. Huge. What is it, 6 tons? Is that what it is? There it goes.
Separation confirmed.
And the cheering
right.
from the late night team here in Hawthorne. We have telemetry and video confirmation of the Hispasat 30W-6 satellite successfully separated from the Falcon 9. It's been a great mission for Falcon 9, our 50th Falcon 9 flight. Countdown was on time. We launched right at the opening of the window. First stage flight was normal. Second stage went through 2 burns. Both of them gave us good orbit insertion. And then finally, as you just saw, satellite deployment right on time. Nice view from the camera on top of the second stage. So that's going to end our webcast for this evening. We'd like to thank our customer, Hispasat, for their confidence in SpaceX, the Eastern Range for their support, the Federal Aviation Administration, our commercial licensing agency, and of course you, the viewer, for clicking on the link to follow us. Now, if moving humanity out into the solar system appeals to you, please check spacex.com/careers for openings at our factory and launch and test sites. Look for updates on our next mission on social platforms and our website. And with that, wish you a good night from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, United States of America, planet Earth.
All right. Well, there we go. There's the SpaceX webcast there. We'll pause that up for a little while, and then we can chat for a little while longer. Because I saw a cool comment. I'm gonna come back to it, but somebody said, I wonder if they have to reprogram the flight computer for each launch since every payload needs different timing. So yeah, generally they do program in a flight profile into every single launch. That's actually what went wrong and the Arianespace flight from what was that, January, I think it was, is they actually they incorrectly programmed the flight profile, and so the vehicle went where it was told to go, but that's not where they meant it to go. So they actually had kind of a quality control problem on the Arianespace launch a couple weeks ago because the flight profile for that launch got incorrectly programmed, and so the vehicle went into orbit, but it was the wrong orbit. All the tracking stations were expecting the vehicle to be in a certain orbital path, and they lost signal 9 minutes into flight because it was veering off into a completely different orbit. Luckily, they were able, the actual satellite providers were able to save their missions. But yeah, they have to load those flight profiles into every single flight, and definitely, I think Arianespace is going to be doing a much better quality control check there going forward, because that was definitely one of the issues the issue that they ran into. So, and then somebody also mentioned about redundancy and radiation. So there's definitely one of the things that's pretty neat about SpaceX is they don't there's radiation is a big thing they have to worry about with computer components, primarily because of bit flip. So the bits in this is we're a little bit where I can geek out because I'm a software engineer myself. So you can get radiation, and I don't have to deal with radiation, thank God. But radiation can cause bit flips, which would basically be incorrect storage values changing because of radiation, and you can get incorrectly calculated values if a bit flip happens in the middle of a calculation. So generally, to make it in a really basic level, if you have a calculation, that says 2 plus 2 is 4, or you're trying to get 2 plus 2, expecting to get an answer of 4, if a bit flip happens in the middle of that because radiation hit somewhere on the memory, you could get something that says 2 plus 2 is 20. And generally, you're going to want to have some redundancy for that. So SpaceX just flies regular computer components. They don't fly radiation-hardened components. They're just flying regular ones, but they fly a lot of them on board. So every system has 3 computers on board, and every computer is a dual-core processor. And they use those dual cores to do completely separate, redundant calculations. So they're generally getting 6 calculations for everything that they're running on board. And if anything disagrees, they have automatic reboots and resync processes so that that flight computer will reboot itself and then resync itself with the others to get started over again. So it is pretty cool, some of the redundancy that they have there, and that's one of the ways that they try to keep things down. Cost-wise is these launch vehicles, they're generally only short-lived. As this one had to make it through half an hour with correct calculations, and then after that it's done. But things like the space station, they have to have radiation hardened and what's the other term? Radiation, not hardened, but it's like radiation resistant. I don't know if that's not the right term. I don't think, but they have like levels of radiation protection for for computer components. So you've got the basically no protection. You've got the radiation resistant. That's not the right term, but there's some, and then you've got radiation hardened, which is meant to handle radiation. So a lot of the space station systems are radiation hardened, but they also have either regular components. Some of the laptops they have on board are just regular laptops. There's nothing hardened about them. But they do have a lot of flight components that are radiation hardened as well, and some in between as well. So yeah, a lot of redundancy on board those SpaceX flight computers, which is pretty cool. It's amazing the stuff that you have to think about that myself dealing with computers and software, I don't have to deal with things like radiation. So I don't, I don't deal with that kind of stuff. It's amazing. It's amazing that they have dealt with that, and to think back, years ago or decades ago, when we just started going into space and getting computers involved into it. How did we figure out that was a problem the first time around? I don't know. But let's see. They aren't using Windows then, I guess. Reboot mid-flight, need to install updates. Yeah. No, SpaceX is definitely Linux-based. All their flight computers are Linux-based at SpaceX. So no Windows for SpaceX flight computers. Yeah, that would just be terrible. I have to reboot the flight computer mid-flight and have to do updates. Oh, my goodness. But yeah, so they do have definitely have a bunch of redundancy going on there, as they should, especially when you're dealing with rockets and things like that. So let's see. Do we hopefully not the Fedora I use on my VPS. Yeah, I don't know what operating system they specifically use, or how it's exactly set up, but yeah, it's definitely Linux-based operating systems on board the SpaceX Falcon Heavy vehicles, or Falcon 9, well, and Falcon Heavy is the same things, but they use Opera to surf the web, somebody said. Yeah, and they do use, so Gregorius said the only Windows machines they use is for instrumentation. I think their Mission Control Center actually does use, they do use Windows-based computers in Mission Control, and a lot of their instrumentation readouts, I could go back and look at what the program is called, but they have a program that is Windows-based in that a lot of their Mission Control computers use to read out the instrumentation on the ground. But onboard flight computers are Linux. So, all right. Well, I think I pretty much covered everything I had to cover. I mean, I don't have to cover anything, but I mean, if I went through and did the planning for it, I might as well spit it out and say something about it. But So I think I've done it all, at least all that I had planned. Unfortunately, we did not see and didn't really hear anything about the first stage. Didn't expect to hear anything really because there was nothing really to hear. I mean, they sent it out, it was expended. I was hoping to maybe hear a little bit about, like, you know, did it explode? Did it perform the soft landing? Because they were running this through the flight profile with the assumption that the ship was going to be there to catch it. They just didn't actually put the autonomous drone ship. Of course, I still love you. They just didn't have it there because of the high seas. So, but the Falcon didn't know that. That was just, it was going to go through and do its thing. So I was curious to see, particularly because this was a high risk landing, because it was such a heavy payload, was it actually able to do that high risk landing and soft land on the water? Maybe we'll find out later tonight. I'm probably going to bed after this, but maybe we'll find out tomorrow how that first stage did on the soft water landing. So that's still something of interest to me. Too bad they lost. So this was the first Block 4 booster that has been expended. All the Block 4 boosters prior to this were recovered. So first expended Block 4. And then, so we've got a couple more Block 4 flights coming up, and then Block 5 will start to get used this year. Block 4 is kind of like a middle ground in between 3 and 5. It's got a couple of engine improvements, some thrust performance improvements on Block 4, but Block 5 is really what has the big improvements for Block 5, because Block 5's got uprated thrust for their engines. They did a whole lot to improve the reusability, because they're trying to get some, even more so than what they have already, they're trying to get into rapid reusability with like 24 to 48 hour turnaround times with minimal refurbishing. So they're also putting on, they're going to have like a heat shield covering for the engines and the piping and everything as the first stage re-enters the atmosphere. So that's something to look forward to on Block 5 as well. Some kind of like, thermal coating or thermal protection system for the engines. So they, a lot of big improvements for Block 5. And then I believe that Block 5 has to be, it's a frozen configuration. Pretty sure that's what I read, which is kind of something that NASA has wanted them to do, is this frozen configuration so that they can rate them for national security flights and other high value flights going forward. They want to make sure they have a stable platform that they can launch aboard. They don't want to be introducing variables and things that could go wrong into the flight. So like they do on either Block 3 or Block 4, they can throw on the titanium grid fins. They could, they change a little tweak here, a little tweak there, and it's no big deal. The Block 5 ones, I think, are going to be frozen, in a stable configuration. So anyways, so we've gone on for a while. Let's see, Coaster Musician. NASA uses lots of Linux-based software, some Windows for its ground terminal in White Sands. I do the testing on it. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with what NASA uses for computer systems. For some reason, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm kind of a SpaceX fanboy a little bit, but I just, I know a lot more about what SpaceX has going on. It's just interesting to me. Not that NASA's not interesting. I like the NASA stuff too, but SpaceX has just been very interesting, especially over the last couple of years. So, all right, well, we went on for a while. Probably going to start trying to wrap this up. So if you're not familiar with what we do, so we're going to have our high altitude weather balloon flights coming up soon. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Follow us, especially on Twitter and on Facebook. Those are kind of the two big platforms that we chat on all the time. But subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got some of our flights going out very soon. Like we're talking in the next week or two. We're already looking at weather patterns, looking at getting our flights up. Probably the first one, I was doing some testing on it today. First one's going to be our new miniature flight computer, which is this little tiny guy here. It's got a big long antenna coming out of it, but it's this little tiny flight computer. Just that there. That's probably going to be our first flight that goes up. It's going to be on a small balloon, only going to go to like 70,000 feet or so. but no cameras on board. This is kind of our version of the expendable flight system. So these are going to be intended, well, not this version, maybe the Block 2 version, but these are we're slowly miniaturizing this design here. This is kind of the first pass at it, but when we can miniaturize it a little bit more and get the cost down, these are going to be expendable weather balloon computers that will put up no cameras, just doing the actual tracking and the weather data collection for like pressure, temperature, humidity, things like that. So that's going to be our expended system there. And then you've got our little tiny parachute, itty bitty parachute. It's so much smaller than what we normally use, but little tiny computer needs a little tiny parachute. So that'll probably be the first one. Probably not as not crazy exciting like the ones with all the cameras and stuff like that on it, but still something interesting. Who knows if this will even work? It seems to work on the ground. We had to spray it. We sprayed it just the other day. It's getting late. I'm trying. A couple layers of conformal coating. It's like a silicone coating, so that because it's all going to be just the exposed circuit, but like it's just going to fly like this. It's not pretty. I guess it depends on what you. I think it's pretty, but it doesn't have a pretty case or anything. We're trying to save weight. We don't need a pretty case on it, so it's just going to be the circuit board that flies just all by itself. So this is our custom circuit board that we developed, and it's going to fly just like that. So that conformal spray, that silicone spray, is just going to protect the electronics a little bit while it's in flight, just from some of the moisture in the atmosphere. If it lands in a lake, it's still toast, no matter what we put on it. But yeah, so stay tuned. That'll probably go up, and then shortly thereafter will be our big flight computer, which is this big guy, a little bit bigger. This is the one that gets all the cameras on board and our GoPros, and usually we get the big balloons for that, go up to over 100,000 feet. So we'll be doing a couple of those, and that'll follow shortly thereafter. But we're really ramping up. March is the month that we start this, and we go through, and we'll do that for through the summer. So let's see, Grigori, what do you use to transfer data from the balloon to the ground, or do you retrieve all the data afterwards? We do not get video footage during the flight. So during the flight, we just fly like these little, we call them GoPros. They're not actually GoPros. They're light dows. They're basically generic brand GoPro action cameras. We do not get live video from these during the flight. That just gets stored on the SD card. So we have to recover it when we do these flights with the cameras. We got to recover it in order to get the video footage. But the onboard data, so like this one is intended not to be recovered. The little tiny one. This one has a radio transmitter, which is what this guy is, and then the big long. This is just an antenna for the transmitter. That will send back temperature, humidity, pressure, altitude, position, what am I missing? Battery voltage, so we know if something's going wrong with the battery. All that kind of data will get sent back to us by radio transmission, and then we can use that to do weather plots and weather graphs, things like that, which is what this one's intended for, the little one. The big one, that's the one that flies with the cameras. We don't, like I said, we don't get the video footage, but there is a big SD card on here that stores a whole bunch of data. This one also sends back temperature, pressure, humidity, battery voltage, but it also stores a whole bunch more information on that SD card. So it'll store like ascent rates, descent rates. It will store, I don't even know what else is on there. It's like number of satellites that the GPS system has. It's a huge spreadsheet that it stores for us. There's like, I don't know, 150 values that it stores every single second. So we get this, 150 columns, and we get like 10,000 rows, this giant spreadsheet after the flight. And that gives us a ton of data. So definitely get more out of that, but those are a little more expensive and a little harder to part with if we lose one. So we really try not to lose those. If we lose the little one, it's not the end of the world. But let's see, Gregorius, have you looked into the LoRa wireless modules? I have not personally looked into those. I've heard great things about them. I haven't gotten that far yet, but we will likely do some of those. Probably not this year. We might start experimenting with those maybe next year. But yeah, I've seen those. I've seen other people use those. I'm not that familiar with them where I could speak intelligently on the pros and the cons of them, but we're trying to master the systems we've got now, and then we almost certainly will move on to some of those other systems there. So yeah, that's definitely something that, you know, one of the things that we do really want to do would be to get live video footage during the flight. That would be pretty awesome. If we could do one of these broadcast sessions with live video footage from our flight, that'd be pretty cool. We're not there yet, so the in-flight footage comes afterwards. And we've got some pretty cool software that takes the data on the SD card and the camera software and overlays it on top of the video so that you can see that. It syncs it all up, and then you can see it afterwards. So anyways, oh, and then of course, usually we try to fly a mascot or something like that. A couple years ago, we flew the referee, but this year we'll be flying the Space Lobster. Hashtag Space Lobster. This guy's going up in a couple of, will probably be like maybe April, May time frame. This guy will go up on a flight, and then afterwards we're going to auction him off. So since we're a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization, we're going to try to raise some funds for our program to help get kids into science and technology. So after the Space Lobster flies, we're going to auction off the hashtag Space Lobster after the flight. So if you want to get yourself a Space Lobster, make sure you stick around for that. So Gregory, no, LoRa upstream is only about 70 bytes per second, I think. Not enough to stream anything except maybe GPS data. Yeah, I don't know if LoRa is the, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I say LoRa. It's just what it looks like to me. But yeah, I didn't think that specifically was it, but I guess I was just getting into, there are, people have done live videos during flight. Not us. I don't know how they do it. Haven't even looked into it. Didn't even try yet. But I have seen some people do live videos during flight. A lot of times they're very, very low resolution. Like, we're not talking like 1080p videos live during the flight. But a lot of them are like, they're like 480 or 320 or something, like super low resolution. Or even just getting live pictures. Much easier to just send live picture, you know, like one picture every 5 minutes or something like that. That's a lot easier to do than the live video. So we may do that. Who knows? A lot of exciting things we're going to try to do. But first things first, we're going to get our new mini computer up. You can get one of our, the bigger computers we've done now for a couple flights, but we got a new one this year. It's got some upgrades from last year, so we want to make sure those things work. And then we got to get the Space Lobster up there. It has to be done. It's just got to be done. So, Coaster Musician, all hail the hashtag Space Lobster. I need to just get a marker and just say hashtag Space Lobster right across it here or something. I don't know if I can do that nicely. But anyways, so, well, thanks for hanging out with us today, tonight, this morning, whatever it is. It's late. It's 1:30 in the morning here on the East Coast. We're in Rochester, New York. So thanks for watching. Again, subscribe to the channel. Follow us, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I didn't mean to say YouTube. I already said that. But make sure you know all this stuff. Just follow along with us so you stay up to date. We want you along with us. We're a nonprofit. We're a charitable organization. We're trying to get kids into science and technology. So if you like what we do and you're really feeling generous, you can make a tax-deductible donation at overlookhorizon.com/donate. All donations, if you're in the United States, are 100% tax-deductible because we are a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. So we love the science and technology. We want to get more kids into science and technology, get them into science and technology careers. It's also engineering, mathematics, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, thanks everybody for sticking around. It's getting late. I'm going to head out here and sign off so that I can go to bed. I got to get up and go to work in the morning. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, this was fun. Great launch today. I'm so happy that so many people stuck around. I thought it was going to be a quiet night and I was going to be by myself. But thanks for sticking around. Thanks for chatting with us. I was glad to see so many people hanging out. So really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. And everybody have a good night. Go get some sleep if you're in the U.S. If you're not in the U.S. and you're just waking up, well, then good morning. Have a great day to you. And thanks again for watching. I'm Tori. This is Overlook Horizon. And we'll see you again next time. Thanks, guys. Take care.